Do you know the rules of a deep sea oil rig? Not the official manual, but the real rules. You don't? Then you're lucky. But now that you're about to hear this story, you'll know the rules too. And once you know them, you can never forget them. My name is Michael Jensen. I've called the sea my home for 40 years. In 2 months, I'll be hanging up my captain's hat and starting life on land. But I decided to leave this log behind for the newcomers who will follow. Rig 32 is no place for the careless or the unprepared. If my story can save even one rookie's life, this warning will be worth writing. If you're about to work on Rig 32, or if you're already here, engrave these words in your mind. Don't forget, your life depends on it. I wasn't always a man of the sea. My father was a carpenter, a craftsman. I inherited his knack for building, but I had no interest in making chairs or fixing roofs. I wanted something bigger, something wilder. The sea called to me. The first call came when I was 17. My family was visiting the coast of Maine. While everyone else was sunbathing on the beach, I walked alone among the rocks. The sound of waves crashing against the stone, the salty wind, the endless blue expanse to the horizon. Something shifted in me at that moment. The sea was calling to me, just as it calls to certain people. Once I answered that call, I never looked back. My parents didn't understand. A stable job on land, a house with a white picket fence, church on Sundays, that was the life they wanted for me. But my heart was already with the sea. The day after my 18th birthday, I left home and boarded my first ship. I'm not a complicated man. I like steady work, strong coffee, and broken-in boots. I have no use for ties or buzzing fluorescent lights in an office. I've always preferred the open air, the sound of waves against steel, and the quiet satisfaction of being part of something larger than myself. The first 10 years were tough. I started on small fishing boats, then merchant ships, and finally, oil rigs. I learned something new on each vessel and took a lesson from every crew. But no place has changed me as much as Rig 32. This isn't just a workplace. It's a test. Survive or leave. Operating an offshore oil rig isn't glamorous work, but it's honest work. It takes discipline, grit, and a willingness to face whatever the sea throws at you. And believe me, the sea has its moods. Some days she's calm and generous. Other days, she's relentlessly cruel. Learning the difference is key to survival. Let me tell you about Rig 32. She's a massive thing, a metal island in the middle of nowhere. Officially, she's in the South China Sea, but her exact location shifts with the currents and the company's directives. This rig has weathered countless storms and come through every one of them. That's what she's built for. The rig's structure is complex. Even the above water section has 6 levels, divided into living quarters, work areas, and machinery sections. But the truly interesting part is below the surface. Officially, there are 3 underwater sections, but some of us believe it goes even deeper. How deep? No one knows. What's it like to work here? Well, some people can handle it. Not everyone, though. There are 3 main types of crew members. First, there are the old salts, like me, those who have been here for years and have seen every one of the sea's moods. Then there are the middle runners, who last a few years. They learn the rules and follow them, but don't quite understand them yet. And then there are the rookies, full of hope, fearless, and in danger. The crew changes frequently. Some last months. Others leave in a few weeks. The reasons for turnover vary: homesickness, harsh working conditions, isolation. But sometimes, people leave for unexplained reasons. Or they don't leave. They just disappear. The turnover rate is high, but that's to be expected. Life here isn't for everyone. The work is grueling, the weather is unpredictable, and the sea is as beautiful as she is unforgiving. Remember that well. When you arrive, they give you a silver badge. It's small, round, and etched with something that looks like a sea monster. Wear it at all times. No exceptions. Most new guys don't think much of it. They figure it's some company tradition or for identification in an emergency. That's partly true, but it means more than that. You'll understand eventually. Let me tell you the first rule. Sometimes, fish will wash up on the rig's deck. At first glance, they don't seem like anything special. Black scales, a streamlined body, the kind of fish you might see in any fishing port. But you must not touch them. Don't even try to take them as souvenirs. If one gets caught in a net, throw it back into the sea as quickly as possible. And I mean, as quickly as possible. They're usually about 30 to 50 centimeters long and weigh between 2 and 5 kilograms. Their scales are a deep black, shimmering blue-green in the light. Their eyes are small but intelligent looking, as if they're thinking. And the smell, it's not the fishy scent of a sea creature, but something sweeter, decaying. These fish aren't normal. Not at all. They look fine on the outside, but if you're curious, or foolish, enough to open their mouths, you'll see something you'll never forget. Teeth. Not the sharp, jagged teeth of a shark or a piranha. These fish have human teeth. Straight, slightly yellowed, but unmistakably human. I've seen many strange things over the years, but those teeth still send shivers down my spine. A rookie once tried to keep one. He thought it was funny.
Look at this.
He said, holding it up like a trophy. We told him to throw it back, but he just laughed. That night we heard his screams. We rushed to him and found him curled up in the corner of his bunk, muttering incoherently. He resigned right then and there. No one stopped him. He left on the helicopter the next morning. The last time I saw him, his eyes were empty, wide with terror. I looked into what happened to him afterward. After returning to land, he spent 3 months in a mental institution and is now living quietly in a small inland town. He reportedly never goes near the sea again. Next, let's talk about the salt statues. They only appear after a storm. Not a drizzle. The kind of storm where the waves get so high they pound the rig as if trying to drag it down into the sea. On such nights, everyone stays indoors. You don't go out on deck unless you want to die. The wind howls, the rain lashes down, and the entire rig shudders under the force. It's a reminder of how small we are out here, just a piece of metal in a vast, angry ocean. But when the storm passes and the sea stills, that's when you see them, the salt statues. They're not always in the same place, but they're always there. Humanoid figures made entirely of salt, standing on the deck as if sculpted by the waves themselves. At first, you might think it's a trick of the light or some kind of erosion, but then you start to notice the details. Arms, legs, torsos, and faces. Human faces. They're a little larger than a regular human, almost 2 meters tall. The salt crystals shimmer in the sunlight, looking like they're studded with diamonds. The folds of clothing, strands of hair, even the knuckles on their fingers are perfectly replicated. It's as if living people were instantly turned to salt. The faces are what stick with you the most. The wrinkles in the skin, the crow's feet around the eyes, they're incredibly detailed. But what burns into your memory is the mouth, always open, as if screaming. Some of the statues have their arms outstretched, as if trying to grab something or someone, frozen in their last moment. Whatever that moment was, I only approached a statue once. I was a rookie, and curiosity got the better of me. When I looked closely, I saw something else mixed in with the salt. Small seashells, fragments of seaweed, and, my heart stopped, strands of human hair. We don't touch them. We don't talk about them. By midday, they're usually gone, dissolved into the sea or blown away by the wind. But they always come back, after the next storm or the one after that. Some of the older crew members have theories. Some say the statues are manifestations of the souls of those lost at sea, sailors caught in storms, never to see land again. Others believe the sea itself is sending us a warning that this is not a human domain. If you see them on deck the morning after a storm, don't go investigating. Take it as a warning, a demonstration of what the sea can do. The sea is full of strange things, and some of them I will never understand. Not all of them. In fact, very few have answers. But I've seen enough to know. The more you prod, the more dangerous it gets. Scientists say we've only explored 5% of the ocean. Who knows what's in the other 95%? In a place like Rig 32, that unknown is right there, thousands of meters deep, beneath our feet. There are nights out here when the water looks like liquid bitumen. No light penetrates it, stretching out like a vast, endless pool of oil. But just when you think it can't get any darker, you see something that catches your eye. Stars. Tiny points of light reflecting on the surface, shining like a second sky. Beautiful, sure, but it doesn't make sense. When you're this far from land, and the only thing breaking the darkness is the rig's lights, you learn to question such beauty. One of the most terrifying nights of my life happened when I was still new to the rig. 40 years ago, when I was still green, eager, and a little too bold for my own good. I just finished my shift and decided to head to the observation deck for a smoke. It was a quiet night, or so I thought. The air was heavy with the promise of a storm, and the clouds overhead were thick enough to completely obscure the moon and stars. I leaned on the railing, lit my cigarette, and took a long drag. The sea was the blackest I'd ever seen, but after a moment, I noticed something strange. There were small points of light scattered across the water below. At first, I thought they were reflections of the rig's lights, but that didn't add up. They didn't move with the waves like reflections would. They were fixed in place, like stars pinned to a black canvas. Mesmerized, I stared at them, and a terrifying thought crossed my mind. The sky was completely covered by storm clouds. There were no stars to reflect. That's when I realized they weren't stars. They were eyes. Dozens, perhaps hundreds, of eyes staring up at me from beneath the water. I can still recall the details of that moment vividly. The eyes were of different sizes, some as small as human eyes, others as large as car headlights. All of them glowed with a yellowish light, blinking slowly. It was as if giant creatures were observing me, sizing me up. My stomach dropped, and my cigarette slipped from my fingers. I don't remember much after that, just the clang of my boots on the metal as I ran back inside. The next morning, I told one of the older crewmen. He wasn't surprised.
The deep sea dwellers.
He called them.
They've always been there. Just get curious sometimes. You were lucky. They didn't come any closer.
It took me months to go back out on deck after dark. Even now, after all these years, I avoid staring at the water for too long. You never know what's looking back. On Rig 32, there's an old sighting that gets passed down among the crew. It's the story of a ghost ship. It only appears on stormy nights, when you're out on deck, fighting to secure gear and make sure everything holds. You'll see it in the distance, A massive ship. It looks like something out of a history book, with huge tattered sails and a barnacle-encrusted wooden hull, so much so that you can't tell where the wood ends and the sea begins. The ship moves through the water like a phantom, silently, smoothly, no matter how rough the waves are, and you never see anyone on board. Not a single soul. The first time I saw it, I thought it was some kind of mirage. Maybe I'd been in the sun too long, or the stress of the storm was making me hallucinate. But then I looked around and saw the same expression on the faces of the men next to me. They saw it too. No one said a word. No one ever does. But everyone's thinking the same thing. That's Davy Jones. You've probably heard the legend of Davy Jones, but if you haven't, I'll tell you. He's said to be the captain of the Flying Dutchman, cursed to sail the seas forever. Some stories say he was a greedy sailor who betrayed his crew for treasure. Others say he was a man who fell in love with the sea itself and made a pact with the devil to stay upon it forever. Whichever story you believe, the tale always ends the same way. Davy Jones is cursed, and so are those who cross his path. For centuries, sailors have feared him. He's said to collect the souls of those who die at sea, dragging them down to his locker at the bottom of the ocean. When you're surrounded by water, old stories tend to feel a little more real. They're stories for survival. So, when the ship passes, don't call out, don't wave, and certainly don't try to signal it. Keep your head down, do your work, and pray it passes you by. There's one rule on Rig 32 that you need to understand better than any other. Never go through the red basement door. If you look through the construction records for Rig 32, you won't find any mention of a red door. It's not on any official blueprints. But some of the old crew members on the rig claim it's been there since the very first day of construction, as if the rig was built around it. You might not even see it during your time here. It's not always there, but when it is, you'll know. A heavy, rust red door, tucked away deep in the lower levels of the rig, near a stairwell that leads to the storage rooms. You could walk past that spot 100 times and never see it, but one day, it'll just be there. No one knows why. No one knows who built it, or why it appears and disappears like that. If you find it, walk away. Don't touch the handle. Don't even stand there and stare at it for long. The longer you linger, the stronger your curiosity will get. And curiosity on Rig 32 is the kind that kills. The last person who ignored that rule didn't come back alive. His name was Marco. He was a welder, a good guy, always joking around, always willing to lend a hand. He'd been on the rig for about 6 months when he stumbled upon the door. I don't know why he opened it, but he did, without telling anyone. He slipped inside during his shift and never returned. We searched the entire rig for him, but we couldn't find him. A few weeks later, during a storm, his body washed up on deck. It was the first and last time I've seen that happen. The sea doesn't give back what it takes, not usually. But there he was, lying on the deck, as cold as the metal beneath him. I haven't always followed the rules myself. When I was young and new, I had a rebellious streak. I didn't like being told what to do or what not to do, especially when no one would give me a good reason. So, one night, when the door appeared during my shift, I decided to see for myself what was on the other side. It was foolish. I knew it even as I turned the handle and stepped inside. The door was heavy, creaking on its hinges as it opened. Beyond it was a metal spiral staircase, leading deeper down than I had anticipated. With each step I took, the air grew colder, and the hum of the rig's machinery faded to a low growl. When I reached the bottom, I found myself in a strange, confined room. The walls were steel, slick with condensation, and the floor was uneven, as if warped by the immense water pressure around it. The entire room was submerged, and there was a large circular window that took up most of one wall. Through that window, I could see the ocean, dark, vast, and endless. There were no other doors, no indications of the room's purpose, just the red door behind me and that window staring out into the deep. I didn't stay long. The longer I stood there, the more I felt like I didn't belong, and I felt like something was watching me. Not just the massive presence beyond the window, but the room itself felt alive, as if it were observing me. I climbed back up the stairs, closed the door behind me, and never looked back. The next day, the door was gone. I've only seen it a few times since then, and each time, I give it a wide berth. I don't know what would have happened if I'd stayed longer, or worse, if the door had disappeared while I was still inside. That's the thing. The door doesn't stay put. It appears and disappears on its own terms. And you don't want it to disappear when you're on the wrong side. I don't know why the door exists. I don't know who built that room or why it's there. It might be part of the rig's original design, a leftover from a time when people didn't ask so many questions. Or it might be something else entirely, something that doesn't belong in this world. Whatever it is, it's not meant for us to understand. All we can do is stay clear. If you're unlucky enough to encounter it during your time here, remember this: leave it alone. Don't go inside. Then there's the captain's quarters. No, not mine. It was the captain's quarters before me. That room has been empty for years, and no one goes inside. It's not locked. You could open the door if you wanted to, but no one does. It's a good space, too, larger than a regular bunk, with its own desk, a window overlooking the sea, and a bed that's more comfortable than anywhere else on the rig. But it's left untouched, pristine, like a museum exhibit sealed off from the rest of the world. The thing is, the old captain disappeared. One day he was there, running the rig as usual, and the next day he wasn't. No warning, no goodbyes, no signs of a struggle. Just gone. The crew searched high and low, every corner of the rig, but found no trace. That was decades ago. His disappearance is still a mystery, one of many on Rig 32. I asked around, trying to piece together what happened from the men who were here at the time, but no one knows, or if they do, they're not saying. All they told me was that he was a good captain, fair and hardworking, the kind of leader people respected. And then one day, he was gone. The strangest piece of evidence was his personal belongings. Everything was left just as it was: his clothes, his books, his photographs, and, most importantly, his journal. The last entry was from the day before his disappearance, and it read, "The call from the deep grows stronger. It's becoming difficult to resist. If something happens, tell the crew this was my choice." The room remains empty now, not out of superstition, but out of respect. At least, that's what the crew says. But that's not the strangest part. On quiet nights, when the sea is still and the rig is silent, some of the crew say they've seen a man in a yellow jacket on the observation deck. He always stands by the railing, smoking a cigarette. If you get closer, you'll see he's wearing the same silver badge everyone gets when they start working here. When I first heard about him, I thought it was a joke, a ghost story told to scare the new guys. But then I saw him myself. It was a quiet night, the kind where the sea looks like glass and the stars stretch out forever. As usual, I headed to the observation deck for a smoke after my shift. I thought I was alone at first, But then I saw him, a man in a yellow jacket, his back to me, staring out at the water. I don't know why, but I nodded at him and said, "Evening." He turned his head slightly, just enough for me to make out the outline of his face in the dim light. He said nothing, just returned the nod and took another drag from his cigarette. I stood there for a minute or so, not knowing what to do, and then I walked away. I didn't go back to the deck for 3 days. That's the rule. If you see him, always say something, acknowledge him, be polite, but don't linger. And whatever you do, don't go back to the deck for a few days. The crew says it's safer that way. Some of the crew believe the man in the yellow jacket is the old captain, still watching over the rig in his own way. Others think he's something else entirely, something the sea sent to remind us of our place. Whatever he is, sometimes people disappear after seeing him. Not often, but enough to notice. There's Marco, the welder who vanished after the red door. Before him, there was a deckhand named Big Vic, who ignored the 3-day rule. He went back to the observation deck the very next night, and by morning, he was gone. No one knows what happens to them. I started leaving a cup of coffee on the deck when I see him. Nothing fancy. Just the same stuff we drink in the mess hall. But it feels like I'm doing the right thing. My parents weren't religious, but they always taught me to respect what you don't understand. The coffee is my way of showing respect, like an offering. I don't know if he takes it. By the time I check, the cup is always empty, but that could be the wind or sea spray. Still, it makes me feel better. I've only seen him a few times over the years, and each time has been the same. No talking, no moving, just standing there with his cigarette, staring out at the water as if waiting for something or someone. If you're smart, you'll follow the rules. If you see him, just nod, say good evening, and if you're brave, you can ask a question. He won't answer, but that's not the point. The point is to show respect. That's all I can tell you about the man in the yellow jacket. You can decide for yourself what to believe. Finally, let's talk about the badges. Every crew member on Rig 32 gets one when they come aboard. They're about the size of a silver dollar, made of polished metal that never tarnishes, no matter how many storms you go through. Etched on the surface is a great sea monster wrapped around an anchor, with the company's logo imprinted in a way that catches the light. Officially, the badge is your company identification. It proves who you are, lets you clock in and out, and gives you access to certain areas of the rig. But like everything else out here, it means more than it seems. The badges are also keys. Certain badges will open doors that aren't on the blueprints. Doors tucked away deep in the lower levels, where the rig descends deep into the water. These aren't regular maintenance rooms or storage spaces. No one talks about what's behind those doors, and I don't think anyone really wants to know. There's something about them that makes your stomach twist just walking past. And then there's whatever is beneath the rig. I don't know what it is, only that it's big, bigger than the rig itself. It's not violent, at least not yet, but it's there. When the rig creaks, I can't tell if it's the machinery under strain or that something in the deep is making a low, guttural sound. Whatever it is, you don't want to get too close to it, and you don't want it to notice you. That's why we wear the badges. They keep us safe. At least, that's what we believe. But the badges do more than keep us safe from whatever is down below. They also act as a lifeline. If you ever get thrown overboard during a storm, and believe me, you don't want to be in that water for long, the badge is your only chance of survival. Among the old salts, there's a legend of the water horse, a mystical creature known to rescue those who drown at sea. But it's not a common rescue. The water horse only saves those with a special mark, and that mark is our badge. It doesn't happen often, but when it does, it's something you'll never forget. I only saw it once, about 10 years ago. It was during one of the worst storms I've ever experienced. The waves were towering, crashing against the rig with enough force to shake it. The wind was deafening, and the rain came down in a thick sheet that made it impossible to see even your own hands in front of you. We were all strapped in, trying to secure gear, when one of the new guys slipped. He went over the railing and was in the water in an instant. The waves were brutal, tossing him around like a rag doll. We yelled, threw ropes, did everything we could, but the current was too strong. And as we watched, the dozen or so eyes I spoke of appeared, scattered across the surface of the water, and from the deep, something else surfaced, a mouth. It was massive, about half the width of the rig, and circular. It wasn't filled with sharp, jagged teeth like you'd expect from a sea monster. These were human teeth, rows of them, straight and yellowed, exactly like the fish we sometimes find on deck. The mouth began to suck in water, creating a vortex that pulled everything towards it. The new guy was doomed. I could see it in his face as he struggled against the current. His screams were lost in the roar of the storm. He clutched his badge, holding it tightly, and then it happened. The badge began to glow, a beacon of light cutting through the chaos. From out of nowhere, the water horse appeared. It rose from the water like a figure from a dream or a nightmare, depending on your perspective. It looked like a horse, but its mane was made of seaweed, and its eyes glowed. The new guy didn't hesitate. He grabbed the water horse by the neck, clinging on for dear life as it fought against the vortex. The water horse's power was unreal. It was able to pull him from the current and carry him towards the rig. We were waiting there, reaching out, and when the water horse brought him close enough, we pulled him onto the deck. The water horse didn't linger. As soon as the new guy was safe, it vanished beneath the waves, along with the great sea monster and its terrifying mouth. The storm quieted shortly after, as if whatever forces had been unleashed were satisfied and had retreated to the deep. That's the only time I've seen something like that happen. But it's not the only story. Some crew members say you can throw your badge into the water as a kind of gamble. Ask for help, and if whatever is down below takes a liking to you, it will answer. But you don't know what you'll get, or if you'll get anything at all. It's a gamble, and I wouldn't recommend taking it lightly. Here's what I know. You don't want to lose your badge. Keep it close. Wear it always. It's more than a piece of metal with a company logo. It's protection, a lifeline, and a connection to whatever forces keep this rig afloat. And out here, with the ocean stretching out endlessly in every direction, sometimes that's all you have. This is the last story I'll tell. If you're reading this, you're already on the rig, settled into your bunk, getting used to the constant hum of machinery and the smell of salt in the air. The first few weeks are the most dangerous. Rookies are curious, and they're prone to disregarding the rules. But with time, you'll learn the wisdom of these rules. You might never see the red door, or the man in the yellow jacket, or the water horse. Your time out here might be nothing but routine shifts, warm coffee, and Friday night pizzas. Cherish the mundane days, the days that are neither miraculous nor terrifying. Because on Rig 32, normalcy is a luxury. If so, consider yourself lucky. But be prepared. The sea is fickle, and Rig 32 is a place where the unexpected happens. The most important lesson I've learned in 40 years is this. Always be vigilant, but don't let fear consume you. Fear dulls judgment and makes you make mistakes. And on Rig 32. Mistakes can be fatal. But if you do see these things, if you hear the creaking of something massive beneath you, or catch a glimpse of glowing eyes on the surface, remember what I've told you. The sea is beautiful, yes, but she is vast, ancient, and full of mysteries we will never fully comprehend. Respect her, follow the rules, and keep your badge close. Don't be arrogant. We are guests here, and the sea is a generous host, but even her patience has limits. And remember this, you now know these rules. Once you know them, they become part of you. The sea knows it. No matter where you are or what you do, the rules of the deep will always be with you. Knowledge is both a curse and a blessing. It keeps you safe, but it also makes you a part of the sea's secret world. I'm leaving here soon. After 40 years at sea, I'm starting a quiet life on land. My wife is waiting, a woman who has patiently waited for my return for 4 decades. A small house, a garden, and a life where I don't wake up to the creaking of the rig in the middle of the night. But Rig 32 will remain a part of me. What I've seen here, what I've learned, what I've survived, it will be with me until I die. And sometimes, on quiet nights, I know I'll miss the sea, her beauty, her power, and her endless mystery. That's the last lesson you'll learn on Rig 32. What you learn here never leaves you. The sea will be etched into your soul, a part of it forever. Don't fear it. Embrace it, respect it, and use that knowledge wisely. I've entrusted this log to the new captain who will succeed me. Her name is Sarah Chen, a capable and brave woman. She will guide the next generation of crew members and pass on the lessons I've learned. But ultimately, each person must forge their own relationship with the sea. Good luck. And most importantly, don't lose your badge. It's your compass home.